Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Paralegal Career for Dummies, 2nd edition, by Scott A. Hatch and Lisa Zimmer Hatch. Narrated by Coleen Marlo. Publisher's note: this audiobook includes bonus material. Please visit Tantor.com and type Paralegal Career for Dummies into the search box. Follow the link to the book's page. Then, under the supplemental content section, please enter the access code JUSTICE, and then click the Unlock button to access the bonus material. This code should be entered in all lowercase letters. All figures and tables referenced in this audiobook can be found in the bonus material. Limit of liability, disclaimer of warranty. While the publisher and author have used their best efforts in preparing this book, they make no representations or warranties with respect to the accuracy or completeness of the contents of this book, and specifically disclaim any implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. No warranty may be created or extended by sales representatives or written sales materials. The advice and strategies contained herein may not be suitable for your situation. You should consult with a professional where appropriate. Neither the publisher nor the author shall be liable for damages arising herefrom. Introduction. America has a fascination with courtroom dramas. Dozens of TV shows and hundreds of movies have been based on the legal profession. Hollywood has even made musicals with courtroom scenes. Real courtroom dramas receive nearly constant attention on the news networks, and if CNN's coverage of every detail in a trial isn't enough, there are always continuous access to Law and Order reruns on numerous channels and streaming devices. You may not have noticed, but one thing's missing from most of these legal dramas: the behind-the-scenes work of the paralegals, or legal assistants as they're sometimes called. In the media, lawyers give flawless and impassioned pleas to the jury, and the force of their arguments turns the case, or under relentless cross-examination, the defendant suddenly admits to the crime. In reality, these events rarely happen. Cases are won and lost based on what takes place outside of the courtroom even before the trial. The vast majority of the work for a civil or criminal trial is done before the trial begins, and after a trial starts, there are usually very few surprises. But just as the networks choose to broadcast the Olympics, but not the 4 years of training in between, so the focus of dramas is on the action in the courtroom and not all the investigation, interviewing, writing, and research that builds the case. So when you're watching TV dramas, you'll usually see the lawyers in the courtroom, but not the paralegals whose research allows the trial to take place. Whether you're researching the paralegal profession to see if it piques your interest, or you've worked as a paralegal since Clinton was in office, you can find a wealth of pertinent information in this book. This book is a fun and informative resource for anyone who loves the law and wants to find out more about it. You'll want it within easy reach as a reference to consult throughout your paralegal career, or to explain the nuances of what you're watching on television. This book offers something for everyone. About this book. If being a paralegal appeals to you, you've come to the right place. Since 1980, we've instructed people from all walks of life and with a variety of goals on how to work as paralegals. This experience has shown us what information you absolutely need to know before you apply for a paralegal position, and what information is best learned on the job. So, Paralegal Career for Dummies, 2nd edition, doesn't cover things you don't need to know. We want to focus on what's most important. This 2nd edition incorporates updated information designed to help you decide whether a paralegal career is right for you. It also directs you to the current resources you need to get the right education and experience to make your dream a reality. The best part is that it actually goes into great detail to teach you the vital skills you need to work as a paralegal, or to act as your own pro se litigant. As if the amazing information in this text wasn't enough, in the 2nd edition, we include accompanying online resources at www.dummies.com/go/paralegal-career-2E. You can access useful forms, sample resumes and cover letters, and other references, as well as links to valuable websites. Finally, this book is a reference book, which means that you can keep it at your desk and reach for it whenever you need some more information. You don't have to listen to it from beginning to end. You can just dip into whatever chapter or section is most interesting to you today and come back to the book later as your needs and interests change. Of course, if you want to listen to the book the whole way through, we won't stop you. Foolish assumptions. We make a few assumptions about who you are as the reader of this book. Maybe you've always had an interest in law, but you don't want to spend the time and expense on law school. Besides, who wants to be the brunt of all those lawyer jokes? Or if you don't mind the jokes, you could be considering law school, but you want to be sure that law is a good match for you before you invest in 3 or 4 more years of education. Because paralegals do almost everything an attorney does, working as a paralegal will let you know right away whether you love the law as much as we do. Plus, a job as a paralegal would be a perfect way to make money while you're in your last 2 years of law school. You may even decide you'd rather stick with a paralegal career, especially considering that the Department of Labor consistently projects the paralegal career to grow much faster than the average for other professions. Maybe you're working as legal secretary and thinking that you could do a lot more of the legal work in the office. Wouldn't it impress your supervising attorney if you could come up with a vital piece of legal research discovered as a result of your newly honed legal research skills? Or it could be that you worked on one of your own legal nightmares either as a pro se litigant or as an assistant to your attorney. You may have had an epiphany that you could do as good a job as, or a better one than, the attorney who worked on your case, and that you could actually get paid for your efforts. Whatever level of interest or experience you bring to the table, this book is for you. Icons used in this book. One helpful feature of this book is the icons that highlight especially significant portions of the text. Icons which you will hear verbalized alert you to certain kinds of information. Tip. Throughout the book, we give you insights into how you can enhance your performance as a paralegal and your knowledge of how the law works. When we highlight something especially helpful, we flag the paragraph with a tip icon. Technical stuff. The language of law can be puzzling. Whenever you see one of these icons, you know that we're providing, sometimes excruciating details on a complex legal concept. If you're not as into the minutiae as we are, you can safely skip these paragraphs and get the main point. Warning. Working as a paralegal isn't all fun and games. As a paralegal, you can do or fail to do things that have devastating consequences. Heed these cautionary time bombs to avoid pitfalls that can cost you your dignity and maybe even your job. Remember, this book gives you gobs of information, and some of it's so important we may just have to say it again. When we talk about something especially important for you to remember, this icon will be nearby. In addition to the fountain of information contained in this book, you'll find floods of handy forms and sample documents online. When we mention something that's available online at www.dummies.com/go/paralegal career 2E, we also flag it with this icon. Where to go from here. If you're new to the paralegal profession and want to see what it's all about, start with Chapter 1, which gives you a great introduction to a paralegal career. Then read the chapters in Part 2 to gain a general understanding of the field of law. From there, choose chapters that sound interesting to you to better determine if this exciting career is up your alley. If you've worked as a paralegal or legal secretary, use this book to find out more about what you do on a daily basis. For example, if your supervising attorney wants you to take on more responsibility, such as legal research, Chapter 13, document drafting, Chapters 10 and 16, and interviewing, Chapter 12, read the specific chapters that pertain to your new duties. Or, if you've always wanted to know about the legal system to get a better understanding of why you do what you do, read Chapter 4. Although we're pretty confident about the comprehensiveness of this book, you'll probably need more education if you've never worked in a law office before, or if you have, but don't feel confident about the depth of your skills. Enroll in a quality program through a recognized university or college, like the one we offer, and impress your instructors with the expertise you've gained from reading this book. You may want to join a state and local paralegal association to find out more about your chosen career and gain valuable networking resources. Above all, don't be timid. Get out there and apply your newly found knowledge to a real live job. If you think you need a little experience first, volunteer your services to a local nonprofit law office, such as Sierra Club, legal aid foundation, or the public defender's office in your area. You'll be surprised about how much you know with this book as your guide. 1. A snapshot of the exciting and lucrative paralegal profession. In this part, explore the wide variety of jobs in the paralegal profession and sample those jobs where paralegals are most in demand. Discover the skills and education necessary to succeed in a paralegal career. Amplify your networking success through joining paralegal associations and decide whether certification makes sense for your path. Prepare killer cover letters and effective resumes for securing a paralegal position. Set up your freelance paralegal business and advertise your skills to law firms and other potential legal employers. Chapter 1. Discovering the Paralegal Profession. In this chapter, looking into what paralegals do, familiarizing yourself with the kinds of workplaces paralegals encounter, getting the proper training to work as a paralegal. With so much media coverage for attorneys and so little for the equally important paralegals, you may not be entirely familiar with what a paralegal career entails. In this chapter, we tell you what paralegals do, where paralegals work, and what it takes to become a paralegal. Almost a lawyer. What a paralegal does. Both paralegals and lawyers are legal professionals. The difference is that an attorney must supervise a paralegal's work, and a paralegal can't do certain things like give legal advice and represent clients in court. But there are many things paralegals can do. Because using a paralegal instead of an attorney can save you a lot of money, law firms and corporations are increasingly relying on paralegals. As a paralegal, you'll likely be doing many of the tasks that in past decades were accomplished only by licensed attorneys. We cover some of these important tasks in the following sections. Researching and analyzing the law. Courts make decisions about current cases based on the decisions made in past cases. So, to effectively prepare a case, you have to know what the courts have decided in similar circumstances and evaluate them to figure out how they apply to the case you're working on. You find prior cases and relevant statutes through legal research. Performing legal research can eat up gobs of time, so attorneys often count on competent paralegals to take up this duty. No matter which area of law you enter, you'll have to do legal research. But if you work in areas that frequently require litigation, you'll do lots of research. But even other areas like domestic law, trusts and estates, corporate law, and entertainment law are going to require you to hit the books. Of course, legal research has increasingly moved away from books and into computer technology. This doesn't mean that you'll be doing less research, just that you may be doing more of it from your desk rather than heading to a law library. Chapter 13 shows you how to research the law in text and on a computer. Your job doesn't stop with the accumulation of research. You also have to analyze the information by applying law to facts and probably draft memos that present your analysis for the lawyers in your firm. You may need to apply the information that you find to a corporate contract, will, or other legal document. In many cases, you may even be asked to do initial writing on motions that will actually be filed in court. So although you may not be speaking in court, your work will be. Playing Sherlock, interviewing and investigating. Cases aren't only about relevant statutes and case precedents. They're also about the facts. As we discuss in chapters 11 and 12, you may interview witnesses and collect evidence in your paralegal career. Evidence gathering is especially important in any kind of litigation. Litigation results in many areas of law. For example, corporate law may involve litigation stemming from contract disputes or product liability. Patent and trademark law may lead to trials over intellectual property rights, and family law features frequent litigation, especially stemming from divorce and child custody issues. For each of these kinds of lawsuits, there are witnesses to interview and evidence to gather. For example, if your supervising attorney were working for a plaintiff in a product liability suit, you would need to gather information on the harm caused by the product, interview other people who may have been adversely affected by the product, work to determine what the company knew of the danger and when, and collect information from any additional witnesses. Tip: even if you aren't working in litigation, you may still need your interview and investigation skills. For example, when you help prepare a prenuptial agreement for a family law practice, you need to determine the client's assets and investigate the background of the future spouse. If you're working for attorneys in entertainment law who are reviewing a record deal for one of their clients, you may have to investigate the details of the deal or the record company. Whatever the area of law you become involved in, you'll use your interview and investigation skills. Convening with clients. Without clients, the practice of law wouldn't exist. Tasks like legal research and document preparation may seem to be the main duties of legal professionals, but you only engage in these and other legal tasks because you're working on behalf of a client. Establishing good relationships with clients is essential to open communication and good legal practice, and it's also important to strengthening your career. During your paralegal career, you may find that you're often the liaison between the client and the attorneys you work for, which may be one of the most important duties you have. As the liaison, you keep the client informed of how the case is progressing and work with the client to get all the relevant case information. Then you accurately relay what the client tells you to the attorney who represents the client. Remember, as a paralegal, you generally aren't allowed to have your own clients. If you tell clients that you're representing them in a legal matter, you're probably guilty of the unauthorized practice of law. So in every case, clearly communicate to the client your status as a paralegal. All your duties are supervised by a licensed attorney, which means that you communicate everything the client tells you to your supervising attorney. Attorney-client privilege doesn't require or even allow you to keep any secrets from your client's lawyer. You can find more on these and other ethical concerns for paralegals in Chapter 15. Administrating the legal environment. In some offices, you may work as a case administrator. An administrator handles the case details for a client and the attorney. For example, law firms have special accounts where they keep money that belongs to clients rather than to the firm. If a client wins a judgment, or if money included in a will is being dispersed, that money passes through the accounts of a law firm. Or you may keep track of the money bequeathed through a will if you work for a probate attorney. In a small law office, your paralegal duties may also include administrating the entire operation, including the filing system, the calendar, and the billings. For more on how to manage these tasks, turn to Chapter 18. Why it pays to be a paralegal. Many people with dreams of working in the legal profession think first about becoming an attorney. The reality is that becoming a paralegal may make more sense than becoming an attorney. In general, paralegals don't make as much money as the licensed attorneys they work for. However, some experienced paralegals, such as those working in large corporate firms, may make considerably more money than young attorneys in other areas like criminal and family law. For the sake of comparison, consider two imaginary college students who graduate from the same college in the same year and end up working at the same mid-sized corporate law firm 3 years later. Anne decides to attend law school after graduation. Because of her good grades and LSAT scores, she's accepted at a competitive law school, one that doesn't offer many scholarships. So Anne has to finance her education with loans. The average cost of tuition, living expenses, and books at a competitive law school is more than $45,000 per year. Federally guaranteed loans only cover about half of this, so Anne has to take the rest in private loans with higher interest rates. At the end of her 3 years of study and her 6 months of preparing for the bar exam, Anne is in debt for more than $100,000. To pay off her loans within 20 years, Anne makes monthly payments of as much as $2,200 per month. Anne also had to forego 3.5 years of wages while she was in law school and studying for the exam. John decided after graduation to become a paralegal. He chose a course of paralegal training that took about a year, but the classes fit his schedule so that he could also work full-time as an administrative assistant at a law firm. His tuition was much lower than Anne's, and because he was working, John didn't have to take out any loans at all. After completion of his course, John stayed with the firm as a paralegal instead of an administrative assistant. By the time Anne is hired by the firm, John has already worked there for 3.5 years, the last 3 as a paralegal. He has earned raises each year and is making $60,000 per year. Anne joins the firm at a salary of $85,000, a good starting salary for an attorney. Anne's loan payments of $2,200 per month add up to about $26,000 per year. So when taxes are taken into account, John actually has more disposable income than Anne. In addition, John has saved $20,000 from his 3.5 years of working, while Anne still has to pay off $100,000 in debt. In terms of wealth, John is starting out $120,000 ahead of Anne. Even if Anne's salary rises faster than John's, it will probably take about 20 years for Anne to catch up with John in terms of wealth. As this example illustrates, for many people, becoming a paralegal is a better way to get involved in a law career. On the job, where paralegals work. Paralegals work in many different areas of the law. For a sampling of them, read Chapter 9. Some paralegals choose to earn high salaries in corporate law or complex litigation. Other paralegals work for low-income clients or for public interest or environmental law firms. Some paralegals like the personal atmosphere of a small firm, and others take control of their futures by starting their own paralegal businesses. There are as many different choices for paralegals as there are types of law. The six-figure paralegal working for a big firm. If you think that attorneys are the only legal professionals capable of making six-figure salaries, you're wrong. In bigger cities, experienced paralegals working for large firms can make more than $100,000 per year. Two factors have a big influence on the salary you can earn as a paralegal. Your level of experience. The longer you work as a paralegal, the more valuable you become. That's why it's important to get started on your career as soon as possible. As you develop your skills, you'll be given more complex tasks and get paid accordingly. Your area of specialization and the responsibilities of your job. If you choose to specialize in corporate law or litigation, you have a high earning potential. Increased salaries usually mean more responsibility. The highest paid paralegals often supervise other paralegals or have particularly important duties within the firm. Here are some areas of the law where paralegals often make the highest salaries. Litigation. Paralegals working in the field of litigation have some of the most interesting and challenging duties available to legal professionals. Litigation can be fast-paced and complex with dozens of potential witnesses and mountains of evidence. It takes qualified and talented lawyers and paralegals to deal with complicated litigation. If you aren't afraid of intense work that often extends beyond the normal workweek, you may have what it takes to make a big salary in litigation. Corporate law. Corporate law involves important and lucrative deals. Contracts, mergers, takeovers, and issuing of stock constitute just some of the activities of a corporate legal team. If you have an eye for detail and you're interested in business, corporate law could mean a big deal for you. Other special areas of law. Another way to make a high salary is to specialize. Paralegals are always in demand in certain specialties. These specialties require knowledge of more than just the law. For example, if you have a degree in chemistry, you could specialize as a paralegal working with the pharmaceutical industry. Nurses find highly paid positions as consultants in firms that specialize in medical malpractice. Examples of areas where your interests can turn into a high-paying paralegal position include patent and trademark law, environmental protection, and other areas involving science and medical malpractice and product liability. Jack or Jill of all trades, working for a small firm. Working in corporate law, complex litigation, or an unusual specialty might not be for you. Paralegals do tend to earn the most in these areas, but salary isn't everything. Working in a small firm offers many advantages, and if you don't want to live in one of the big cities in the United States, a small firm may be your best option. As a paralegal in a small firm, you may find yourself performing diverse tasks while working on a wide variety of cases. You might be compiling asset information for a bankruptcy filing, interviewing witnesses for a child custody issue, helping a client draft a will, and assisting a small business with incorporation. Talk about multitasking. If you like to constantly confront new challenges, if you like seeing your efforts have immediate results for real people, and if you're flexible enough to do your best with any assignment you're given, the small firm might be the choice for you. Plus, small firms often offer opportunities for fledgling paralegals to get their feet in the door. Spreading the love, the pro bono paralegal. If you're willing to sacrifice salary for public assistance, you could become a paralegal at one of the pro bono firms that work for justice rather than profit. These firms work to help disadvantaged clients, save the environment, uphold civil rights, and protect constitutionally guaranteed liberties. By working for one of these firms, you'll pull in a modest salary but make a big difference. Working for the government. A growing area of employment for paralegals is with the public sector. All levels of government and court systems employ paralegals. The biggest federal employer of paralegals is the Justice Department, followed by the Social Security Administration and the Treasury Department. But nearly every cabinet department employs paralegals. State governments have been hiring new paralegals at increasing rates. Paralegals have been replacing licensed attorneys in bureaucracies because using paralegals saves governments lots of money. If you choose to become a paralegal in the public sector, you'll be a member of a bureaucracy. The public sector has more defined rules and procedures and more definite job descriptions and roles than the private sector does. Working for a small firm, you might be asked to perform just about any task required for a client. Working for the government, you'll likely have a strictly defined job description and a firm knowledge of exactly what you'll be doing each day. The public sector pays less than large firms, but generally more than small firms. Government employment also tends to be less risky than employment in the private sector. Government employees have more rights, including the protection of certain personnel procedures that don't allow government employees to be fired on a whim. Government jobs also tend to provide excellent benefits packages. If you favor stability, a public sector job may be right for you. Doing it your way, the paralegal as independent contractor. On the other end of the spectrum from stable government employment is the paralegal entrepreneur. If you don't want to be tied down to a single firm, if you want the opportunity to work for different firms on different projects, or if you're comfortable taking risks and reaping the rewards that come with being your own boss, you may choose to strike out on your own as an independent contractor. Independent contractors are paralegals for hire. If a small law firm suddenly gets involved in big litigation, it needs a lot of help. Instead of hiring a bunch of employees and paying them benefits, the firm may be better off contracting with a freelance paralegal. Of course, freelance paralegals still have to be supervised by an attorney. But by creating your own paralegal contracting service, you can take more control of your professional life than you usually can working for one particular firm. For more information about setting up a freelance paralegal business, see Chapter 3. What it takes: the skills, knowledge, and training you need. Gaining the skills you need to become a legal professional takes more than reading every John Grisham novel. Paralegals are skilled professionals. When you work as a paralegal, you won't have your own clients, give legal advice, or argue a case in court, except in specific administrative law hearings. But you can do any of the other tasks that can only be performed by a skilled legal professional. Of course, you have to become a skilled legal professional first. To succeed as a paralegal, you need the right combination of personality and education. Paralegal personality. The legal profession is a demanding one for attorneys and paralegals. The hours can be long, deadlines tight, and stakes high. The legal profession also has a strict code of ethics. Just missing a deadline can be an ethics violation. People with many different backgrounds and personalities can and have succeeded as paralegals. However, there are certain things that nearly all successful paralegals have in common. So when we talk about the right personality for the paralegal profession, we mean the group of characteristics that successful legal professionals, both lawyers and paralegals, tend to share. Tip: here are some of the main characteristics you need to survive in the legal profession. You need the ability to reason. You don't need to have aced the IQ test or earned a 4.0 GPA throughout your educational career to be a good paralegal. But you do need to be able to understand and analyze complex legal issues to interview witnesses, conduct legal research, or draft contracts. You need to be reliable. The legal profession lives and breathes deadlines. In litigation, there are specific deadlines you have to meet for filing documents with the court, and you must meet these.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?